happen.
I'm Gautam Mukunda. Tonight on Greater Boston, Massachusetts has reported more cases of white supremacist propaganda than almost any other state in the country. How did we get here, and what do we do about it? Then, the women's NCAA tournament is seeing ticket and viewership highs. GBH's Callie Crossley joins me on the momentum that's finally giving women their due. And finally, one LGBTQ plus advocate on his toughest fight for acceptance in his story from the stage. Racist and anti-Semitic messages were hung over highway overpasses, passed out on flyers, and graffitied on walls all across the state. And these were just some of hundreds of cases of white supremacist propaganda reported in Massachusetts last year, more than almost any other state apart from Virginia, Texas, California, and New York. That's according to a new report from the Anti-Defamation League released this week, which also found white supremacist propaganda at record levels nationwide. GBH News' senior investigative reporter Philip Martin has been covering these alarming trends for years. He joins me now to discuss, along with Gregory Freed, a professor of political philosophy at Boston College, where he specializes in the intersection of race and philosophy and the rise of ethno-nationalism. Philip, Gregory, thanks for joining us today.
Okay, thank you.
Pleasure. Philip, tell us, I mean, how bad is what we're talking about?
Well, this is a record year. The Anti-Defamation League has puts out these reports every year on extremism. They've been doing this since 2017, and this is a record year with over 7,500 acts of white supremacist propaganda being distributed around the country. And Massachusetts, though the number of incidents, if you will, has decreased somewhat from last year, it's still very high, making Massachusetts the fifth largest state, I should say the fifth state in the United States that where you find white supremacist propaganda being heavily promulgated. And you, at the beginning of this discussion, you talked about overpasses. We've seen a lot of that from the groups like the Patriot Front and NSC 131, a group called the Nationalist Social Club 131. And we've seen even propaganda being distributed by a prison gang called the Aryan Circle.
So when we look at the data, what we see is that from 2018 to 2023, we're seeing an increase in the United States of reported incidents from 1,214 all the way up to 7,546, which is incredible. In Massachusetts, it's actually worse. I mean, hard as that is to believe, from 11 incidents in 2017 all the way up to 339 in 2023. That's a 3,000% increase.
That's right.
So Gregory, do we have a sense as to what's causing this extraordinary surge?
I think some of it is political opportunism on the part of these groups that sense that they have a historical moment in which it's time to strike and make their mark. I think that it may be because Massachusetts and the greater Boston area is a center of education and they're hoping to recruit among the younger generation. And it may also be because they sense that there's some kind of political drift in the American Northeast away among white working class from the once proud and strong democratic alliance between various groups to disaffection with American political parties now.
So is this, I mean, it's easy to ascribe all things to Trump, but is this a Trump effect where he's just taking down the norms towards this sort of behavior in people, or is there more going on than that?
I don't think it's a coordinated effort.
No, I'm not suggesting that, just suggesting that.
I think Trump has given permission
to
people to be receptive and to make such kind of propagandistic overtures. But honestly, I think the bigger problem is not these very fringe groups, but the importation of some of their ideas into mainstream discourse in right-wing media and by Donald Trump and those who follow them themselves. So it's one thing for the National Social Club or the Patriot Front to behave in this way. It's another thing for Tucker Carlson to adopt the great replacement theory, which is, in its origins, a fascist, white supremacist theory of what is going on in Europe and the United States. And that we saw at the march in Charlottesville, where they were chanting, "Jews will not replace us." That was a version of the Great Replacement theory. So to have that becoming mainstreamed in American political discourse, that's what's truly disturbing. And for me, these outlier groups are kind of the canary in the coal mine, and not directly what we should be most worried about, because they don't have a serious political presence of their own. It's really the MAGA movement that is what we should be concerned with as importing those ideas in a respectable form.
I think that's right. And I think a term that you use, opportunism, is absolutely appropriate, because, I mean, it's no coincidence that MAGA operatives, individuals, the movement itself has targeted trans and gay people, for example. And so what do you see? You see NSC 131, you see the Patriot Front, seeing that as an opportunity. And they go out and picket and distribute literature against gay and trans people, show up at events where gay and trans people are present. It's no coincidence, for example, also that they've latched onto the DEI issue, where DEI has essentially become, for the far right and for much of the MAGA movement and a lot of the Republican Party, it's become a surrogate issue for race. You replace the word DEI and you put in black person, or you put in Latino person, and you're basically making the same level of excoriation, the same type of excoriation, the same type of vilification of people based on their race. But you now have a ready excuse by talking about, by declaring that you're really talking about the process and the principles of DEI. And the far right have understood that this has become a mainstream issue and are using it in order to basically embed themselves further into the mainstream. So the Patriot Front, while they are seen, they are in fact a neo-Nazi group, formerly of Stormfront members, who basically changed their tactics and changed their appearance in order to win acceptability. The same thing is true with the language that they use. They use certain language in order to convey respectability. They rarely use explicit neo-Nazi language these days, except online and amongst themselves. And what they try to do is to speak in terms that what one would be, as Gregory pointed out, would be described as mainstream propaganda.
Yes, and I do think that the gold standard for them is to get some of those ideas imported into what we would think of as right-wing media and talk radio on Fox News by people like Tucker Carlson on the Great Replacement theory. But you hear this creeping into Donald Trump's own language. And you mentioned gay and trans people, the DEI as a substitute for directly talking about race, but also the attacks on immigrants.
That's right.
All three of these are groups that are extremely vulnerable and politically weak, and these are easy targets. And in movements like this, neo-fascist movements, it's very important for them to have an enemy that they can target without worrying that they're going to have to pay a price for it.
That's right.
And I think what's really disturbing is some of the most recent language of Donald Trump, where he talks about the political opponents that his movement has as vermin, as Marxists, as fascists, and as if I can get the exact language, I'm going to have to paraphrase, but when he has said recently in his Patriots' Day speech that the internal enemies in the United States are a greater enemy to the United States than North Korea or Iran or what have you. This is a classic fascist move, and these kinds of tropes that we see in the extremist groups getting imported into mainstream right-wing propaganda is what allows a now very powerful political movement in the United States to mobilize those kinds of tropes.
Indeed.
So I think people who live in Massachusetts tend to think that Massachusetts is kind of immune to this sort of thing, or at least less susceptible than anywhere else in the country. What does it say that, in fact, the numbers seem to be higher here? I know when I saw those numbers, I was doing a per capita adjustment in my head, and that actually made Massachusetts look even worse.
Well, I think what they see in Massachusetts is an opportunity to to contravene the assumptions about Massachusetts. Massachusetts, they correctly figure, has also a conservative aspects to the state, and you do have parties within the state who might be susceptible to these type of messages. And so the NSC 131 Patriot Front, they essentially are trying to, again, create a situation where that's in contravention to assumptions about what the state is, and to try to turn liberal democracy on its head. And so it's not entirely surprising that these groups, again, coming out of the Northeast, the Patriot Front is a Texas-based group. NSC 131 is indeed a Massachusetts-based group. They find that within the state that there's the possibility of turning someone around, and the fact is their ranks have grown. NSC 131, Patriot Front has experienced growth nationally, not necessarily in Massachusetts, but they know exactly what they're doing.
And I think one other thing I would say about it is we can't neglect the internal politics to these movements. They're also competing with each other for prestige. And coming to the liberal Northeast as a place to engage in confrontation and conflict can be seen as a badge of honor among these competing groups. So I think there's some element of that in it as well, that this is a kind of act of aggression and daring on their part to be present here in the Northeast.
Well, Philip Gregory, this is something that we should all be concerned about, and we'll track it closely here, and I'm sure you will as well. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Next up, pulling record-high viewership, ticket prices, and drawing in new fans. That's now par for the course, or should I say court, for women's NCAA Division I basketball. This season's success comes in spite of long-time neglect from the association, which has put a lot more time, money, and attention into the men's teams. GBH's Callie Crossley has been following along and cheering them on. She joined me yesterday to discuss. Thanks for joining us.
I'm glad to be here.
So suddenly women's basketball is the hottest sport in America. What's going on?
Women's college basketball specifically, March Madness specifically. March Madness is a particular cultural phenomenon. I am not a sports person, so somewhere millions of people are out there looking at this laughing that I'm having this discussion with you. But it's become such a big deal that even those of us who are on the periphery, who barely pay attention and don't watch the games, but I watch all the highlights, are really into it. It's the coverage, it's the personalities, it's the whole Cinderella possibility of it, and it's the fact that finally we're at a point where women's sports are getting the due, at least in audience, and some money, not where they should be yet, you know.
So, I mean, sports might be the last communal experience we have in America now, but it's always been men's sports up until now, with the exception of the national women's soccer team for the World Cup, right? So that was the big. But suddenly, women's basketball has a celebrity. Caitlin Clark seems to be the biggest celebrity in college sports right now. Is this a Caitlin Clark phenomenon, or does it go beyond that?
No. So remember now, with March Madness specifically, because I want to just keep in that arena, I do think some has spilled over to the WNBA, but with March Madness specifically, that was 1939 for, when it started for men, 1982 for women. So there was a lot of catch up. And all of this blanket TV coverage was what? on men's teams. So it's just been recently that somebody woke up and said, oh, people are interested in watching the games for the women. Also, the intensity of the competition between the women's teams has brought a lot of other attention. And all of those personalities, the coaches are fabulous. I'm like, who can't watch Kim Mulkey from LSU with the pink outfits and the boa constrictors and whatever she's wearing all the time, and she herself being a player? How about Don Staley, 3.2 contract with the South Carolina Gamecocks? I mean, they're playing for a deathmatch situation. There's a lot to watch and follow, and the talent is great. So yes, Caitlin Clark has drawn more people to it because she's broken some impressive records.
So, I mean, and this is reflected in the economics, right? So right now we know that the cheapest ticket for the 2024 Women's Championship game is currently $320. That's 38% more expensive than the $257 price for the cheapest men's ticket.
Okay.
That would have been, that would have been mind-blowing 10 years ago, the idea that differential would go in that way. And this is not a story of interest in the men's game decreasing.
No.
This is a story of interest in the women's game increasing.
Which is what you're supposed to do. The pie is supposed to get bigger. That's all. Everybody has a piece of it. I think it's important to note that $1 billion more is going to be spent on sports betting this go round. That's how huge it's gotten, because 40 states now have legal gambling because of that Supreme Court overturning that rule in 2018. So now we have the highest ticket prices for Final Four for the women. Okay, so that says a lot, 50% more in general. I mean, the money is, there's so much money. And not to mention that the players themselves, you mentioned Caitlin Clark, have an opportunity to use their images now and make a profit off of it. So she's got Gatorade, State Farm to begin with. She's not even in the WNBA, and so many of the other players do as well.
I am also happy to license my name and image for anyone who wants it. But in fact, strikingly, even sort of almost traditional men's commentators have acknowledged that this is real. Yeah, finally.
Yeah.
This is something real. I mean, Skip Bayless has said that he's more interested in the women's tournament than the men's tournament, right? And Stephen A. Smith, of all people, has said that the women are more interesting than the men. I mean, I could have lost some of that $1 billion betting that those two would never say something like that.
I know, and I think it's so interesting because the language of March Madness is really quite feminine. We're talking about going to the big dance, having your dance card punch, dancing, the glass slipper for Cinderella. I mean, come on. It's fascinating to me that with that kind of language, it's always been focused on the men. But this time, the Cinderellas are with the glass slippers are on the right foot, and that's the distaff side.
Do you think this is going to last?
Yes. Yes, you can only get more interested because the talent has always been there. They just haven't had the platforms to do it. Hey, Don Staley has a $3.2 million contract. That's finally getting into a place where women's coaches should be in terms of talent, of the kind of coaching they're doing for the talented players like a Caitlin, like an Angel Reese at LSU, like the entire Gamecocks, South Carolina, the Don Staley coaches. So I think when we see more of that, and particularly the blanket TV coverage, and now we're talking about the betting, absolutely.
And do you think this is going to grow beyond March Madness?
And that's interesting because I think some of it for the women is now going over to WNBA popularity. We've seen some of that in the last years, but I want that to just boost up to the level of intensity. Some part of March Madness has to do with it's very confined. You've got those 68 teams. They go right down to the Sweet 16, which we know is going to start now today and tomorrow, today for the men's and tomorrow for the women's. And then after that, down to the Elite Eight and then the Final Four. So it's so fast, whereas, obviously the other seasons, the professional basketball take longer. So I think that the buildup is there. I think that we've seen the interest, and I am expecting it to not only maintain, but just to go up like 3 or 4 times folds, like the money is.
So the most important question is, how is your bracket doing?
Oh, I don't do brackets. See, I told you, I'm on the periphery of the cultural phenomenon, which makes it a huge cultural phenomenon. For those of us who not do the brackets, I don't watch the games. I watch the highlights. I am just into it in the moments, in the way that I am. That says something about how this particular phenomenon has embedded itself in people far beyond those who are just sports fanatics.
Well, it'll be an exciting big dance for the rest of March, and we look forward to seeing the rest of it.
As Bill Rafferty says, send it in, Jerome.
Callie Crossley, thanks so much for joining us today. Finally tonight, Rhode Island native Randy Rice has dedicated decades of his life to advocating for LGBTQ+ equality. He shared one of his toughest battles for acceptance with stories from the stage. We bring you that now as part of a partnership between that show and this one.
It is the Wednesday before Thanksgiving 2000. My boyfriend Aaron and I are hosting our first holiday together. After living apart for the first 5.5 years of our relationship, we took the plunge, bought a home, and we began living together. I'm a queer activist, openly HIV positive. I've protested, I've marched, I've died in, I've written strongly worded letters to the editor. I have not thrown condoms at Catholic bishops, but I have handed out thousands of condoms to sex workers. Doc Martens, ACT UP, angry, AIDS, protesting, we're here, we're queer, get used to it, all of that. My boyfriend Aaron, by his very existence as a visibly gay black man, prefers not to draw additional attention to himself, and understandably so. We are both mama's boys. It presents itself differently in each of us, but it is a defining characteristic for both of us. Now here we are, we're hosting our first Thanksgiving together. Aaron's 73-year-old mother, May Hazel, will travel from North Carolina to join us for the holiday. Born in 1927, May was born in a small farming community on the border of South Carolina. Her grandfather was born into slavery. May graduated college in 1946, an astonishing achievement for a black woman at the time. She had a long, successful career in the healthcare industry and has for decades been a Sunday school teacher at First Baptist Church. She is a woman of deep, abiding faith. Generations of people have said or have been told, straighten up, here comes May Hazel. While Aaron came out to his mom as a gay man in 1982, night after night, she prays that he will find the right woman. May and I have met a handful of times, and we speak on the phone occasionally, but Aaron has not told his mom explicitly that we're a couple. He tells me she doesn't want to know. May, like many moms, prefers the polite euphemism friend. When spoken as Southern code, it is typically pronounced as a two-syllable word, frand. A few weeks after Aaron invited his mom to join us for Thanksgiving, he suggested to me only once and only briefly that perhaps during his mom's visit, we could sleep in separate bedrooms. Not a chance, was my reply. If I ever visit your mom in North Carolina and she wants us to sleep in separate bedrooms, fine, I'll do it. It won't make me happy, but I'll do it. Her house, her rules, but not here, not in our own house. So here we are, it's Thanksgiving Eve, the house is clean, we're ready. When May arrives, we're all on our best behavior, we're doing the dance. It's like a Victorian era dance where everyone's moving in time to the music, but there's no touching, and there's no emotion. I retire early because I want to give them the time and the space to go down memory lane. Unbeknownst to me, Aaron's strategy for avoiding the obvious conversation with his mom is to stay up later than her for 10 nights in a row. Night one is not going well. The clock passes 11, then 11:30. May is comfortable and chatty in the guest room, which is right next to our bedroom. Finally, accepting the inevitability of it all, Aaron says, "Good night, Mom," while he reaches for the door handle of the room that May saw me walk in 2 hours earlier. Well, I can't hear her. She is energetically and desperately pointing at the bedroom door and whispering soundlessly, "You sleep in there?" "Yeah, Ma. Good night." As Aaron opens our bedroom door and closes it carefully behind him, I am tucked in bed trying to stay out of it. Aaron is panicked. He is certain that his mom is packing her suitcase and calling a cab to the airport. You got to go talk to your mom. I can't. You've got to. I can't. You've got to. We go round and round. Do you want me to go talk to your mom? Yeah. Okay. It's almost midnight, but I'm up. Knock twice on her door, which is ajar. May, can I come in? Yes, you can come in. But what am I going to say? What does May need to hear? May I begin? I said, I know that you prayed that Aaron would have a nice place to live. He does. I know you prayed that he would have a good job. He does. May, I know that you prayed that Aaron would find someone to love him. May, your prayers came true. I love your son. All of the things you prayed for, they came true. Not like you expected them to, but they did. At some point, Aaron says that he heard us laugh. That's when he fell asleep. The next morning, my mom, Abby, think Betty White, comes over for Thanksgiving and to meet May for the first time. As she walks in our front door with our Christmas presents under her arm, she is beaming as she hugs and kisses Aaron. Me, I'm watching May watch my mom, and it's intense. May is seeing my mom treat her son like family. At that moment, Thanksgiving Day 2000, I know that we can all do the work that love requires. That was 22 years ago. Today, May is 95 years old. 2 years ago exactly, February 14, 2021, she came to live with us. And she will tell you, whether you ask her or not, that she has two sons, Aaron and me. Thank you.
You can catch more Stories from the Stage Mondays at 9:30 p.m. on World and Fridays at 8 here on GBH2, or anytime on the Stories from the Stage Facebook page and YouTube channel. And in a couple of weeks, you can catch some stories in person at the Stories from the Stage Into the Wild event. For tickets and more info, head to gbh.org/events. That's it for tonight, but come back tomorrow for Talking Politics. Adam Riley and his panel will discuss the state's migrant crisis that has turned into a national political firestorm. How will local lawmakers and the people in shelters be impacted? Then, Katie Lannon talks with Veterans Services Secretary John Santiago about rebuilding trust in the agency. Those stories tomorrow at 7. Thanks for watching. I'm Gautam Mukunda, and good night.
On Masterpiece.